So good afternoon everyone. Today our topic is about accessibility, the building blocks. So we already talked about accessibility from the last semester. What is about accessibility? Accessibility means you have to be satisfied for everyone. It means you have to be meet the minimum requirement for to satisfy everyone. So we already discussed about the meaning about accessibility. Today, we more to discuss about ADA requirement for your design. Okay, so you can see the first page here. You see the Jack Black and this small guy. So when you design a space, you have to be satisfied Jack Black and these small guys. Okay, so this is our role to satisfy everyone when you design a public building. Okay, so today is very important topic to consider how you considering about the public space and how you design the space. Okay, so before I discussing about the today's topic, I review the last semester topic a little bit because this is a connect to our topic today. So let's recap the human factor and anthropometry. What is about the anthropometry? You guys probably remember from the last semester. The anthropometric is the study of human body and its movement. It involves collecting statistics or measurement relating to the human body. So we can call it as anthropometric data. But what about the human factor? Human factor, this is an understanding scale of our bodies and space we occupy, which is a scientific discipline concerned with the understanding of interaction among human and other elements of the system. When you're designing something else, when you design space, when you design the mouse, you have to be understanding about our body. This is all about the human factor, the dimension our body to understanding about our body, and you can adapt this body dimension to designing something or design a space. So what determines scale in architecture? How human factor impacted our design? The first one, we have to be understanding about the people. How many people using this space? When you know about the human dimension, you're easy to know about if 10 people using this space, you're easy to track how much space you needed. And then machine and equipment. What kind of machine and equipment used in the space? Depending on the machine size and equipment size, you can also deciding about the minimum size for the space. And then does the form follow function? What is the minimum about the form? It is design. Follow function. Function means the program. Depending on the program, you require a different space and space size. So when you're designing about the classroom or when you design the gym, it requires a different program. It means it requires a different space. So this is a basic understanding to determine the space. But how do we keep track of all factors? This is important to know where did you getting this information from. So you can getting the information from graphic standard. This is a show the minimum requirement and also showing some recommendable number showing in the graphic standard. What about the IBC? This is a regulation, International Building Code. It means it is restrict code, it restricts dimension to meet for your design. So it shows a minimum requirement. You have to be meeting this requirement for the design. Also, your experience is very important because you already live around 20 years already. You already know about which space is comfortable, which space is uncomfortable. Means you can easy to adapt some spatial design basically from your experience. So anthropometry, we can call anthropos, which is the human, and pometry is a measurement. It means the anthropometry means the measurement of the human individual. Okay, so it is the study of a measurement or the proportion of a human body according as gender, age, and etc. So means this is getting some average number to getting this human data, human dimension data. So you can just kind of understanding about this anthropometric data. You can easy to adapt to design the space, and you also understanding how you designing space and where you can adapt. And then what is about the minimum required space dimension for the design. So from this kind of data, the graphic standard, when you see the graphic standard, you can find out that this average number for the gender, from the gender or from the different age. So you can simply understanding how much the dimension you require for the space. Okay, you can also find out the reaching size, how human body can reach, and then depending on the reaching size, you can design a cabinetry, you can design the what is about the maximum height, what is about the minimum height of the cabinet, how you can access. So you can actually getting this all information from this anthropometric data. Okay, so now we talk about accessibility. This accessibility dimension starting from this anthropometric data. Okay, let's talk about our topic today. So now we talk about the accessibility. The what is about the accessibility? You have to be understanding about the meaning about accessibility. Accessibility means it is for all users. I think it is very important thing to understand. It's all users. Okay? It means you have to be designing for the all users. The accessibility refers to design product, device, service, environment for the physical disability. Means you have to be understanding to designing any product, any device, any service, any spaces to meet for all users, right? So this is a basic concept to understanding about the accessibility. Please understanding about this meaning, and I think you just kind of better understanding what is meaning for the accessibility and why we need it and how you can apply and adapt from this basic concept to design your space. Please understanding and memorize accessibility is for all users. Okay. So next I just kind of bring the one video. So I think this video giving the last bit inspiration why we need considering about the accessibility for your design. Okay, let's watch this video together, and then we can just coming to we can talk about the topic today.
The less adapted world you're living in, the more handicapped you are.
All too often, we're forced to behave as athletes to overcome obstacles in our everyday city lives. These are sometimes impossible to overcome for disabled people. Accessibility is still far from being a reality in Europe, but it's a goal for a growing number of cities. Kees Jan van der Cloister's motto is "Live fast," and he does in spite of a snowboarding accident that left him paralysed in 2001. A Paralympic Games gold medalist, he also gives children and adults in wheelchairs training to help them face a world seldom suited to their needs. To get an idea of the world he lives in, we went out for lunch with him in Amsterdam, a city of bridges and cosy little restaurants.
So what often happens to me is that I see a nice little restaurant and I want to go in there. I get confronted with a few steps. Well, these aren't too big actually, but let's see what they have for lunch today and if I can get in. Okay, hoi. We wilden een hapje komen lunchen. So yeah, that wouldn't be an option.
KJ's first attempt fails. There are 2 flights of stairs between him and the toilet. The waitress sends him to the restaurant next door. More steps, another door. KJ's second attempt is more successful, but not without some hurdles.
We can have lunch over there. It's funny. Yes, now, and now push push with the knees really. Oh, one more. No. It's not about strong. We have to get pressure on the wheels. We go backwards one more time. I go here, you hold me, and I lift a little bit in your arms. And now we go up.
A simple ramp would have avoided all this. But legislation in the Netherlands, like in many other European countries, does not impose clear rules on how and when public buildings should be updated to make them accessible. In countries where legislation does exist, it's often ignored because controls and sanctions are rare.
This is the toilet from inside, and actually I'm quite happy with my small wheelchair. And I'm able to get in here, but yeah, you can imagine if you have an electric wheelchair or something, it would be impossible to go to the toilet in this restaurant. And that's a pity, because they have good food and it's a nice restaurant, but accessibility, don't be scared if I crash.
These 3 steps could have made all the difference for a less abled person in a wheelchair. Sometimes it's easier to just stay home rather than go out for lunch with friends.
There's actually too few people with disabilities moving actively in society, especially in wheelchairs. A lot of people stay inside. And yeah, once there's more people moving around in society in wheelchairs, maybe business owners will realize that it's necessary to make their business more accessible.
Spain is among the most active countries in the EU in terms of accessibility. The Fundación Once plays a big role in promoting social integration for disabled people. Several Spanish cities have won recognition for their achievements. Avila won the first edition of the European Award for Accessible Cities in 2010. We met Jesus Hernández Galán, Director of Accessibility at Fundación Once in Madrid, which is hosting the organization's 4th Contemporary Art Biennial exhibition. Jesus is part of the jury for the Access City Awards. This allows him to monitor whether accessibility is taken into consideration in urban planning, culture and new technologies.
European cities are working to become more accessible, but they still have a long way to go. Things are improving, but at a very slow pace. We need legislation on accessibility at a European level. We need harmonization between member states so that we can all move in the same direction.
Spain's Fundación Once works hand in hand with schools of architecture and architectural firms to plan more accessible cities and avoid urban spaces becoming real labyrinths. The district of Valdebebas, currently under construction in northern Madrid, is considered a pioneering example of accessibility. Accessibility was included in the project from the very start, with help from experts at Once. It's a whole new world of codes. Different materials, colors and textures are used to help disabled people get around.
The pavements are divided into static and dynamic bands. In the dynamic band, tires are bigger to give an idea of movement. Next to it, we have the static band, with smaller tiles, which indicates obstacles.
Texture codes and color codes help people with sight and mental disabilities. The height of the patterns and the angle of the slope at a pedestrian crossing are carefully studied to address different forms of disabilities.
People who use wheelchairs prefer continuity, while blind people prefer to have a tangible element that can make them understand where the pavement stops and where the street starts, something they can feel with their feet to understand immediately if they're stepping onto the road.
But when accessibility has not been taken into account from the start, things get more complicated. Mariano's been blind since he was 18. He takes us for a walk near Colón Square in central Madrid, renovated just 2 years ago. With his dog Lilo by his side, things go pretty smoothly. But when Mariano is alone with his stick, glaring planning mistakes surface. Sharp edges border the pedestrian crossing, the tactile paving is too high and the bus shelter's design is confusing. Blue stickers had to be added to prevent people with sight problems from hitting the glass.
This is really strange because it has these openings here and you don't understand why. There are corners that are really confusing because you think, well, where's this opening taking me? Is it the end of the bus shelter? Is it a lateral exit? I don't really understand. And why is this corner here?
European Commission is working on a European Accessibility Act and is active in developing accessibility standards at a European level.
The goal for the future is to not have to ask, when we go to a hotel, for example, whether it's accessible or not. The same way we never ask if it has electricity or water. We take that for granted.
Lack of accessibility often means disabled people are deprived of a social life, a job, or access to public services. Invisible to many, accessibility remains one of the most subtle forms of discrimination.
So when you understanding and to find out this accessibility, you first time to understanding the meaning of a clear floor space. So when you adapt to design the accessible space or public space, you always starting from the clear floor space. So what is about the clear floor space? So we always consider about this minimum clear floor space for the physical disability. This clear floor space, you have to be memorized at this dimension. You have to be memorized 30 inch by 48 inch. Okay, this is a very important dimension to start to talk about accessibility. The 30 inch by 48 inch, it is basically starting from the wheelchair size. So it means for designing the space, just adapt for everyone, it means you have to be meeting with a minimum space, which is a 30 inch by 48 inches. Okay, so please remember and memorize this number, because this number is kind of critical to apply any dimension, any space for designing the public space. So we can just see the more examples later over this lecture. So first one, we can just see the wheelchair accessible, the forward access, and then parallel access. It always apply 30 inch 48 inch space. It means that within this boundary you cannot build anything, you cannot put any object. So you wanna put some object here, or you wanna build some door here, it doesn't work, because you always provide 30 inch by 48 inch clear space. Clear means you have to be clear within this boundary, which is a 30 inch by 48 inch. Okay, when you do the parallel, you have to meaning the 30 inch by 48 inch, the parallel side. It means when you're designing something else and then put the object, you always can avoid the clear dimension here. Okay, so you have to be making the clear space within the 30 inch by 48 inch. But when you wanna designing this caved space, so this is a caved space here, or parallel caved space. If this depth is less than 24 inch, you can just keeping the 30 inch by 48 inch. However, this depth is more than 24 inch. You have to be provide additional 6 inch space. Okay, but you don't need to memorize this 6 inch. But when you design this caved space, you have to be open this sheet and to apply this dimension for your design. And then for the parallel, when you do the parallel space, the x, which the depth is less than 15 inch, you can keeping the 30 inch by 48 inch. However, if depth is more than 15 inch, you have to be provide additional 12 inches. Okay, so this is a important concept to know about. 30 by 48 inches start, and depending on the required depth, you can adding some dimension to design the space. This 30 by 48 inch design also determine the passageway. So you just many people just ask me about, question me about how we can decide about the passageway. The passageway exactly starting from this 30 inch by 48 inch rule, okay, which is the minimum clear space. So this is a wheelchair size. What is about the dimension? You remember about this one have to be 48 inch, and this is a 30 inches, right? So this dimension can determine the passageway dimension. Okay, so your passageway have to be provide the minimum 36 inches. So means they just consider about giving the extra 3 inches just next to the wheelchair. So it means the wheelchair clear dimension is 30 inch, and then they just provide extra space which is 3 inch and 3 inch. So that's why passageway have to be more than 36 inches. Okay, this is your minimum dimension. And then if you have any column or door or any kind of object, in this case you can little bit extrude out. In this case you can reduce to the 32 inch minimum. However, when you design this 32 inch minimum, these depths have to be less than 24 inch. 24 inch is maximum dimension when you reduce the 32 inch from the 36 inches. Okay, so this is really important to understanding and the memorize this dimension. So every dimension starting from the 30 by 48, so means your passageway can be 36 inches because it provides extra 3 inches on both sides. But when you're having some reduce the dimension because of the column or door or some any object, you can reduce it to the 32 inch. But this 32 inch can be the maximum 24 inch width. Okay, and then between this column to column or the extrusion part to the another extrusion part, this have to be more than 48 inch because 48 inch is basically from 30 by 48 inch minimum clear floor space. Okay, so when you know about this minimum clear space, it is easy to apply and easy to understanding to designing about this common space. Also, when you're designing about this passageway, anything we should consider. So when you consider about this is a dead end space, right? When wheelchair coming in, how they change the direction when they meaning this dead end. So you also provide this kind of a condition. You have to provide a place turn around at the end of the side, which is if you have a dead end, this wheelchair have to come in and have to be come back, right? You have to be provide this dimension. What is about this minimum dimension for the turning dimension? This turning dimension also basically starting from 30 inch by 48 inch, and your dead end space, any dead end passageway, you have to be provide 60 inch diameter space. I think this is a secondly important dimension to understanding 30 by 40 inch clear space, and then you have to be also memorize this 60 inch diameter space. So it means when you made in the dead end, you can just kind of giving the 6 inch diameter into the space, the wheelchair can turn around easily. Okay, but if 60 inch diameter doesn't work, you also can apply T-shaped space for 180 degree turn. In this case, it's also basically starting from the 30 by 48 inch clear space. In this case, you can just coming down, coming up, and then just coming back up, and then they can change the direction. But you can also apply this dimension, but mostly we apply 60 inch the diameter space for the dead end. So please memorize this 60 inch dimension. But also you can considering about this dimension when this 60 inch diameter doesn't work. So you can just understanding about these two dimension and why we need this space, why we need this clear space for your design. So next one, you can apply this understanding to the actual space. This is a passageway. You remember the wheelchair is the 30 by 48 inch clear space. Okay, you can starting from this one. And then you have to provide 60 inch turning radius, right? They have to be change the direction. And then you also have to be designing this T shape. It means the wheelchair coming in and they can just change the direction easily. Also remember about this dimension, 36 inch dimension, minimum passageway width is starting from the minimum clear floor space. And then you also remember when you're having the extrusion out, especially we have this extrusion out because of a door, it have to be more than 32 inches. So means this dimension have to be more than 32 inches. Okay. So in this case, you also understanding what is about the minimum door width. Door width have to be more than 32 inches in this case. So also have to be know about what is about the depth of this door in the passageway, it is have to be more than 24 inches because it is also coming from this one. Okay. Even when you're designing about the doorway here, it's same thing. You can reduce up to the 32 inches, but you have to be more than 32 inches because about the dimension from this location, this diagram. And also, when you're designing any object here in the public passageway, this is like a water zone here. In this case, you have to be provide 32 inches, more than 32 inches here, and then depth is have to be less than 24 inches. So means every single design here, starting from this diagram, so this dimension here in the diagram have to be applied and adapt to design in any public space. Now we talk about the door design. What is about the door size? I think many people just question about door size, how you can determine and how you adapt this door size for your design. So you have to be answer these 4 questions. I making out of these 4 questions. These 4 questions and answer determine the door size mostly. So first, my question, is it a front approach or side approach? Second, is it a pull approach or push approach? You know about the pull approach and push approach, right? And is it have a latch? And is there a closure? This one is the 4 main question to determine the door size. I think you already know about the side approach and front approach and pull approach and push approach, right? But we just kind of need a bit more to deter what know about what is about the latch, what is about the closure. This is a latch and this is a closure. Everyone just know about it. If you have a latch, door is automatically just temporary, just closed. And closure, when door open, this automatically closing the door. Usually closure, it is using for the fire rating door because this door have to be closed every time because protect the fire spreading. So in this case, depending on the latch and closure, if you have a latch and closure, you need the greater clearance required. Okay, because this is only relating to the fire safety, because closure and latch is required for the fire safety. In this case, when your door has the closure and latch, you need a more clear space. Okay, so let's look at the actual example here. You can find that these 2 door condition here. The front approach, you see the front approach, and then this is also front approach. But door is a pull side, door is open like this way, it's a pull side. In this case, door pushing it, this is a push side. And this is another very important dimension here. When you're having the front approach and the pulling side, in this case, door have to be provide 18-inch clear space. This is very important because even the 5th year student, when I asked to design the door and design the room, they actually, many people actually adding the wall here. But do you think if wall is this location, do you think it works or not? It doesn't work because you have to provide 18-inch minimum clear floor space. So when you have a front approach and pull side, you have to avoid any kind of object, any kind of wall within this boundary. This one have to be vacant. Okay, so I just gonna erase everything here. Just a second. So means you can add the floor. You can add in the wall in this location. Okay, you have to avoid 18-inch clear space right next to the door swing side. I think that is very important. So please memorize this rule, 18-inch. Okay, and also when you're having the push side and front approach, you can increase a 12-inch here if the closure and latch are provided. If your door doesn't have a closure and latch, you don't need to be provide 12-inch clear space. However, most common space for the door, most door for the common space having the latch enclosure because about the fire safety law. So that's why you have to be also concerned about this 12-inch clear space right next to the door swing side. Okay, so 18-inch in this the pulling side, 12-inch the pushing side, but 18-inch always provide with or without latch enclosure, but the pushing side you can just add in the 12-inch if both closure and latch are provided. Okay, so this is the most important concept for door design. So next we talk about the side approach. The side approach, you don't need to too much worry about it compared to the frontal approach. Frontal approaches can be more restrict to design a door condition. But we can just kind of see these three conditions here. So you just kind of, when you're having the side approach, you simply open this slide show and to adapt to this dimension. You don't need to memorize it for now, but eventually you have to memorize it. But for now, I just ask you to memorize these two minimum clear space for now, but later you just can be more understanding and just memorize this one. But for now, you just kind of understanding about the concept. So in this case, you can see the side and hinge approach, right? And then this is a side and hinge approach. And then this is a side and hinge approach. This one is push side, and then this is a pull side, and then this is a push side. So if you have in the side and hinge approach, you can have a here, which is you have a hinge here. In this case, you have to be provide extra 12-inch by 48-inch if both closure and latch provided it. So it means you have to provide extra space if your door has the latch and closure. But if you have a pulling side, in this case you have to provide extra 6-inch if you have a closure provided it. Okay. If you have push side, and also you have to provide extra 6-inch clear space when it has the closure. Okay. So it's just kind of understanding about what is the side approach case, the why we need this extra space. In this case, we can answer if closure provided it, you have to provide more clear space. You can see the actual example from here. Okay. And the same thing when you have a side approach, and then this case, side approach here, and then the pull side, and then this is a side approach and pull side. In this case, if you provide 54-inch clear space, and then this is a 60-inch clear space. When you provide the 54-inch, you have to provide 42-inch minimum clear space with or without the latch enclosure. But when you provide the 60-inch, which is a more clear space here, in this case, you can just provide 36-inch. So it means you can adapt this case or this case for designing your door. Okay. So what about this series? If your door in a series, especially this is kind of more about the egress stair, you can just easy to find out. In this case, you just kind of simply understanding about the 60-inch diameter, because when wheelchair coming in, sometimes they have to be change the direction from this chamber. So that's why you have to provide this 60-inch diameter space for the clear space. In this case, you already know about the door clear space here. If your door open outward from the chamber, in this case you have to provide 6-inch clear space, because about this is basically from the wheelchair turning radius. But if door open inward to the chamber, in this case also you have to meaning the 6-inch turning radius. In this case you have to be adding the 2 door width and 48-inch. When you're having the 48-inch, because about the swing side, it is the 60-inch diameter is fitting into this chamber. And what about the single direction? In this case, you can simply adding the 1 door width with a 48-inch. So in this case, you can fit in the 60-inch turning radius. Okay. So this one, even when you're having this door in a series, if you understanding about the basic concept, which is a 30 inch by 48 inch and 60 inch turning radius, easy to understanding and easy to memorize what is the required dimension for the chamber design. So next topic we talk about the protruding. The protruding is also very important design factor in a public building. It is mostly for the person who is visually impaired. So we have to consider the fixture to making a better design for everyone. So what do we need to designing? What do we need to consider for your protruding design? So I just kind of bringing out this one example here. So what do you need to consider for these people? So first we have to find out the dimension, because the people who the visually impaired, that they bring this cane, the guide cane. So means this dimension actually the starting from the human body factor and then also this cane. So when you're just kind of designing here from this image, you should apply and just know about the dimension here. This is all your consideration. But how you memorize these all things, it's very difficult to memorize this one and hard to apply. So that's why I just kind of giving the very simple diagram. So you simply understanding of this diagram here. So when you designing the space, your height have to be more than 80 inches. Okay, so means this object have to be more than 80 inches. Okay, but if you extrusion out, it can be less than 80 inches. However, this extrusion part from the wall, it have to be 4 inch maximum. It means here have to be 4 inch maximum. This is have to be 4 inch maximum. And then from this water fountain, from wall to here, this is have to be 4 inch maximum. Okay, and then next one, when you're designing the extrusion part from the wall, this extrusion part have to be more than 27 inches. So means this water fountain from the ground, it have to be more than 27 inches, and then same thing, 27 inches, more than 27 inches. So this one, when you just know about this dimension, it is very easy to adapt and apply to design your space. So you don't need to memorize this all dimension here, but once again, when you're designing about the public space, please open this slideshow. Please apply this dimension to designing any public space for the people who is visually impaired. Okay, so means once again, you have to be designing for everyone when you design the public space. It is not for the specific people. So that's why you have to be consider and understanding the designing for everyone. Okay, so this is kind of a main concept to design accessibility. Okay, I just keep emphasizing this issue because many people doesn't too much consider about this issue. However, so you are the designer, which is architect. So it means you have to be more considering about the people, right? Because architect have to be starting from the people. So it means your public space have to be more to consider about this minimum requirement. Okay, the private building doesn't matter, but when you chance to design the public building later, you have to be consider about this manner, and then you have to be consider about this minimum requirement. Okay, so now we discuss about the interacting with an object, which is a reaching accessibility. When people using the wheelchair, we also have to be consider about this reaching distance. So when wheelchair approach to the object, it doesn't allow any obstructed element, which is on any obstructed element, the before reaching object. See this front reach requirement here. So when wheelchair approach from the front, here they approach, these reaching object have to be locating between the 15 inch and the 48 inches. So it means the object have to be locating between the 15 and 48 inches. But also when you're having any obstruct, which is usually countertop the sink top. So when you have like this kind of table, this table can be reach up, extending up to 20-inch maximum. But when you have the 20-inch maximum, this reaching area can reach up to 48-inch. However, this countertop is more than 20 inches but less than 25 inches. This reaching area can reduce, which is the 44 inches. So it means when you're designing any kind of a reaching space, which is any cabinet, any kind of a shelving, the shelving have to be designing within this boundary. Okay, so depending on this extrusion dimension. What about the side approach? It is similar. When you have a side approach, object have to be less than 10 inches. But if you have less than 10 inches, your approach dimension between the 15 and 48 inches. But if you have a 10 inch maximum and you can making out the 34 inch maximum for the bottom object. In this case, you can also build up to the 48 inch maximum reaching area. However, if this object is more than 10 inches but less than 24 inches, the maximum height can be 34 inches. But in this case, the reaching area is reduced 2 inches from the 48 inches. So that's why this reduced to the 46 inches. Okay, I think that you don't need to memorize this dimension, but you also have to be understanding about the concept. Okay, and then when you design something, considering about this reaching area, you also open this slide show, and you have to be applied this dimension to your design. How you apply this dimension? For example, when you design this shelving, okay, this shelving simply apply from this diagram here, right? This diagram shows the 15 inch the minimum and 48 inch maximum. So it means this is simply adapted and applies this dimension to design this shelving, and then maximum distance from here to here, you can just reaching up to the 10 inch maximum. So even you can just kind of understanding when you're designing about this shelving and you're designing a reaching area, everything you have to be considering and apply this dimension to designing this furniture or any object design. So now we considering about when you design the bathroom or kitchen. So also when you design the kitchen countertop or the bathroom sink, you also need to be consider about the 30 inch by 48 inch clear space. So you can see here, so when you design a countertop here, you always consider about this clear dimension, which is the 48 inch by 30 inch. So this is a clear minimum floor space. But in this case, when you design a countertop, we always have a under counter space here, right? So from the dissolution, when you design the 30 inch by 48 inch clear space, you can construct designing this overlapping area. But when you just kind of meaning this overlapping area, you have to be consider knee and toe clear space, because the wheelchair can access this way, but you also have to be consider about this knee and toe clear space under the cabinet. Okay, how you getting this dimension? Actually, this dimension show here. The under cabinet, we usually having this plumbing part, but your wheelchair have to be avoid the plumbing to access under the cabinet. So this one you can just find the knee and toe, the clear floor space, and then this space can be overlapping, and then this overlapping area can be 19 inch maximum, and then the countertop or sink have to be more than 17 inch from the wall. And also you can just find out that this knee and toe clear space under cabinet, it means you have to be avoid to contact this plumbing area. So when you just kind of draw this dashed line here, so this is all following this dimension. You have to be draw this line first under cabinet, then you can calculating how much space you can use under the cabinet, how much space the wheelchair can access under cabinet. Okay, but you don't need to memorize this dimension. But once again, you just simply apply this dimension when you design under cabinet for the accessibility. Okay, and another important dimension here. This is another important dimension, which is 18 inch. So when you design any fixture, okay, in the kitchen or bathroom, you always provide 18-inch clear space from the wall to the center line of the fixture. Okay, so that's why when you design this sink and then the center line of this fixture, you always have to provide 18-inch minimum, which is have to be more than 18 inches. So now you just consider about the bathroom, public bathroom design layout. What did you find accessible requirement in this drawing? You can just find out the various options in the International Building Code. Also, we cover the public bathroom, the requirement from the 348 and 548 class. But now we're just kind of understanding about the concept. What do you need to consider basically from our learning today? So first one, you have to have the turning radius, because wheelchair coming in, if you don't have a turning radius, they stuck in the bathroom. But you have to be designing this the turning radius. The wheelchair easy to getting out from the bathroom. And then now you have to be designing 30 inch by 48 inch clear space in front of the fixture, right? The front of this fixture you have to provide 30 by 48 inch, and also you can just find out the sink here. You remember about the sink, and under sink they have a space. That's why you can have an overlapping area. So it means the while keeping the knee and toe clear space. And then you need a grab bar. But we talk about this one later. You don't need to worry about right now. And then when you're designing about the space, the toilet space, you have to be meeting this all dimension. Okay. And also you can see the more example here. First, you have to be provide 16-inch turning radius. Even though this is one chamber, the wheelchair accessible, the toilet, you also provide another 16-inch turning radius. And if 16-inch doesn't work, you also consider about the T-shaped turning dimension. We already discussed. When you just consider about the T-shape, also you can consider about the under cabinet, which is overlapping space here, right? So it works. It is also counted as the T-shaped turning radius, T-shaped turning dimension. And also you have to provide 30 inch by 48 inch front of the fixture. Each fixture you have to be making out the 30 inch by 48 inch clear space, even the front of the water fountain. And then also you can consider about the clear space, the front of the door. You remember about the 18 inch and 12 inch rule, right? I think you already know about this dimension. This is all the required dimension to consider to design this public bathroom. So we talk about this public bathroom design again next semester, and then 348 and 548 class. So I think we just more to talk about the required dimension and how you adapt the dimension for the design. But now just kind of understanding when you even do designing of the simple bathroom, there's lots of consideration about the accessibility and ADA. So now we talk about the kitchen design. So when you just kind of design the kitchen, the first example and second example, the first example there is kind of an open end, and then the second example they have a dead end here. So in this case you also can apply 30 inch by 48 inch here, and also have to provide 38 inch by 48 inch in front of the kitchen. But in this case you can consider about the passageway. So that's why you have to be provide minimum 40 inch the dimension. So because when you have in the under sink, you have to be consider about the accessibility sink. You have to make it open and the wheelchair can access. So in this case, this is not, under cabinet is not allowed because the wheelchair have to be get access and then they have to be using this sink. Okay, but when you have a dead end here, you have to be provide 60-inch turning radius because the wheelchair access they have to be change the direction getting out of the space. In this case, if you have a dead end, like a T or U-shape, the kitchen, you have to provide minimum 16-inch dimension for the kitchen. Okay, so you can just understanding about the part here. So when you're just designing in front of a fixture, you always kind of provide 30 by 48 inch. However, in this case, you have to be, when you just, the wheelchair have to be working in a sink. From this region, you have to be designing the clear out under the sink. So in your apartment, mostly you have a under cabinet under the sink. However, accessible unit, it doesn't allow to using the under cabinet or removable cabinet. Sometimes the people who are using the wheelchair, they have a tenant, they are easy to taking out the cabinet, and then the wheelchair user actually they're using the sink, and then they can easy to access under the sink without the under cabinet. So that's why the sink here, accessible unit, you're always taking out the under cabinet, and then this wheelchair can access and to working in the sink. Okay. So this is all requirement for the accessible design here. Every front of the fixture you have to provide 30 inch by 48 inch, right? And then under sink you have to be clear out, the wheelchair can access, and also if you have some working table, you have to be remove the cabinet, and wheelchair can access under cabinet. Okay, so this is a rule to design. So now we also talk about some kitchen accessible design. I think we can watch this video together and how designer consider about the accessible design and how they designing how they consider about the every people who are using this kitchen properly. Let's watch this video together and then we talk about some case study. So you can just see how the upper cabinet lowering down, and then the wheelchair user is very easy to use the upper cabinet. And also you can see the next example. Even you can just find out the upper cabinet even lowering down, and then the also wheelchair user is very easy to access. You remember about the side approach and then the reaching area. So this is basically from this dimension. Same way. Even this is under cabinet. So if your wheelchair user is coming, and then they actually lowering down to access this sink better. So means this is for everyone. The people who using the wheelchair, they can access, and then this kind of people can also using the sink again. Also, like a table, easy to adjust the size depending on the user. Also, working table, it is also adjust the some height depending on the user. This is induction and electronic. The fireplace is also work. Also, overall island is also adjust the height. So this is the best way actually. If you adjust the height, it means everyone can using the space very easily and properly. Okay, it's another option to adjust the height from the under cabinet. Okay. So now we're looking at some case study here. So we actually, when I was in the San Francisco, the Stanley Sato's office working on this dormitory building for the Case Western University. So we using this building a lot to see the detail and how we assemble, what about the crading system, what about the waterproofing system, So we're looking at some lots of different technological part from this building as the case study. But today we can see the kitchen part, how we consider about the accessibility kitchen to designing the space from this building. So let's look at the inside. This is a dormitory building. You can see the kitchen here. It looks like a simple kitchen. However, it has a lot of consideration basically from the accessibility idea, because the dormitory is public building. It means we have to be applied this dimension and every single the accessible solution to the design. So this is another view. This is a kind of a kitchen set here. I think it's hard to see from here, but you can just find the old dimension. So this old dimension basically from our consideration from the accessibility. So you're already learning about what is about the height, about the countertop, and what is about the side approach. And then also sink, we have to be the under sink condition. That's a wheelchair can access. We're using the removable countertop. I'm sorry, this under counter. So it means wheelchair user actually is in a tenant. We have to be moving out the cabinet and then moving out the food disposer, and the wheelchair user is easy to access under the cabinet to using this sink. So it means depending on the user, you can just remove the under cabinet or you can just put this cabinet back. So it means you can just kind of more adjustable kind of a furniture design you can propose for the space. So this all dimension basically from our learning from today. Okay. And I think even when you're designing about this simple kind of a kitchen or bathroom, so you always have to be considerate about this accessibility. I think today's lecture is about all basic consideration about some public space. It is everything basically from the minimum clear floor space, which is a 30-inch by 48-inch. Also, we're learning about what is about the turning radius when you're having the dead end, which is a 60-inch turning radius. If turning radius doesn't work, we also consider about the T-shape, the turning. Also, we talk about the door dimension. What do you consideration about the door dimension? We also talk about the 4 different consideration when you design a door. And also we can consider about the side approach and front approach and how you're designing about the upper cabinet. And also we talk about the protruding requirement. And also we talk about how you design the sink and how you designing about the upper cabinet or how you designing about the countertop. You have to be concerned about the knee and toe clear space and how you adapt to this knee and toe clear space and how you overlapping the 30-inch by 48-inch clear space with the countertop or the sink design. So this is all requirement when you design the public space, because we have to be designed for everyone. It's not for the one single person. So it means you have to be satisfying for everyone, right? So it means this is starting from your design. Okay, I think today we talked too much things about the dimension, about the all kind of requirement, but I just kind of indicating emphasizing the few important dimensions. You only memorize this dimension. So it means you just kind of memorize this important dimension and it's easy to apply to the another dimension and another requirement. Okay, so please memorize the emphasizing dimension today I indicate, but other dimension you can just simply open this slide to show and apply this dimension to your design. When you just apply this dimension again and again for your project, you are easy to getting this dimension, easy to memorize this dimension, and then for your future career you can easy to adapt to this dimension to your space. Okay, so I just kind of bring the last video we watching together. This is about the barrier-free kind of design in a city and how you consider about this barrier-free design in the city and your space. Let's watch this video together, and then today you are keep doing your first lab assignment. Okay, thank you so much for today, and then see you next week.
getting around or going on holiday, rights that most of us take for granted. But for disabled people, the barriers are all too evident. Today, more and more cities are trying to become more accessible. For me, the greatest problem is logistical. And then we have to find adapted accommodation where we can feel at home. It's very difficult.
In most European cities, accessibility for all is, as of now, a legal obligation. But making it a reality is taking time, and there's a long way to go. The German capital has been actively putting such policies into place since the 1990s, and its efforts have been recognised this year with a special European prize. The entire Berlin bus fleet is already equipped with wide access doors. The target for 2020 is to make the tramway and metro equally accessible. The Reichstag, renovated in the late 1990s, is a prime example of this inclusive policy. Its famous glass cupola has 2 ramps leading to the top. Katrina Vogt participated in mobility focus groups set up by the city to improve access to its landmarks.
I think it's difficult to say that we only have to change the built environment for us to have a life similar to others. There's a lot more to it than that. For example, we have to change people's mindsets. And that's why it's not only important to build without barriers, but also to consider the wider problems, and in particular, the perception of people with disabilities.
Sich mit dem Thema grundsätzlich auseinanderzusetzen, was beispielsweise die sogenannte Behinderung betrifft.
New ways of making cities more user-friendly are constantly being explored. These tactile, multi-sensory scale models can be found in more and more museums. Access to information is as important as access to places. Urban planner Barbara Berninger is dedicated to the ideal of a city for all.
We want to build up an inclusive city, which means a city for all. And therefore, we use the patterns of the design for all. Because you can be handicapped by a handicap like being visually injured. But I was handicapped when I had 2 children to push at a time.
Accessibility is a vast and complex problem. Mobility, visual, hearing or mental, all different disabilities requiring different responses. Berlin is working with other cities to find common solutions.
If you put together actors from many European cities, then you're much stronger. Making a city barrier-free and accessible for all is a question of cost. So if you make the same mistake in Marseille and in London and in Berlin, it's very expensive. And it's much easier to learn from each other and not to reinvent the wheel again and again.
The EU has taken a significant step in signing up to the UN's Convention for the Rights of Disabled People. It serves as a treaty of reference for minimum norms in several areas, particularly access to public buildings.
Berlin's main train station, Europe's biggest, meets many of the criteria. It was entirely renovated 7 years ago and now has 30 talking lifts and other upgrades like indented lines to guide people with visual problems. But some obstacles aren't so easily tackled.
Many people put their suitcases on that line. They don't realize that it is a guideline for blind people. They think it's just decoration.
Obergeschoss 2, Bahnsteig 13 und 14.
Rudi Leigner is a leader of NATCO, an organisation that raises awareness about accessibility on public transport.
There's still, also in Berlin, a lot to do. We have a modern train station, but when you leave the train station, you don't have any pedotactile stripes on the floor. When you want to use the city buses or the taxis, you still need help and assistance to get there.
While the city for all is some way off, planning trips in advance remains essential for people with disabilities. But so-called accessible tourism is booming. On the River Spree, some pleasure boats are equipped to accommodate wheelchairs. Felix Carr, a tourism entrepreneur, saw the potential.
You always have to make sure that everything is really good, accessible, and we double check, triple check everything. We measure all those, the rooms, we measure the bathrooms. We also have a look at the transportation system and everything, make sure everything works out.
European cities are gradually rising to the accessibility challenge, but it will take some time to lift all the barriers, physical and mental, to allow every citizen to travel freely.